As we begin, that first reading requires a little explanation. If you don't know the story about King Ahaz, he was a very bad man. In fact, he was almost the last of the kings before the disintegration of Israel. So he knew what God wanted him to do. It looks like he's being kind of humble. God says, ask for a sign, whatever, and I will give it to you. And his reply is, oh, no, don't give me a sign. That's okay. I don't need it. What he means is, I don't want it. Because I don't want to know what God wants me to do. I do not want to do what God asks. God asks him to trust instead of joining up with other countries. So Ahaz, he knew exactly what God wanted him to do. And he said no. The opposite we also have in our gospel today, and that's Mary. Mary, too, she knew exactly what God wanted. Now, she didn't understand how it would happen. She didn't know why exactly, or how the story would unfold. But she knew what God wanted her to do, and she said yes. Wouldn't it be nice if you always knew exactly what God wanted you to do? Oh no. Oftentimes we're more like Ahaz. We don't want to know, because it's not always something that we relish to embrace. Sometimes what God wants us to do requires a little courage, a little trust. That's why the angel first always says, don't be afraid, right? Don't be afraid. Now, life is not that easy, though. Oftentimes, we don't know what God wants us to do. We have to kind of figure out, what does God want in this situation? Well, in our gospel, we have exactly that same situation in the person of Joseph. Now, Joseph, we're told, is a good man. And as a good man, as a Jew, he would obey the law. Well, if he had simply obeyed the law here, there would have been two possible things that would have happened. First, Mary would have been dragged out before him, and there she would have been stoned to death. Thank God he did not obey the law. Or the second, what he decided to do was to divorce her quietly, which meant she would have been a single mom with no support, would have lived in abject poverty all of her life. Well, that's what Joseph had decided he was going to do. But Joseph continued to listen to God. And he changed his decision. How often do we do that? Right? And what Joseph shows us then is a model of what we might call spiritual problem solving. Those times, which are often, when we really don't know exactly what God wants us to do. It's not always to obey the law. An example, I warned some of you, if it snows and the road is icy, don't come out and come to church. And here you are. Sometimes it's God's will that you stay home. Or if you're sick, right? Yeah. Sometimes we're supposed to break the law. The law is there to help us, to guide us, but not to make decisions for us. For this, God has given to us a brain. So Joseph sets a pattern for us to follow, to help us making those spiritual decisions. First, Joseph was a holy man. He loved God. He loved his faith. He loved the law. And he wanted to follow the law. It gave him the opportunity to say thank you to God and enter into the covenant life. Second, Joseph loved Mary. And this was the saving grace. And then third, Joseph listened to God's messenger. We could see this and say that Joseph prayed. He talked with God. It is those three, then, that ended up with Joseph doing the right thing. We, first of all, are required to love God, and we do. Which means what we want is to do God's will. Whatever our decision, is what we're searching for. What is God's will? We're not like the king Ahaz. We're not going to say no. We're going to say yes, but we need to know what is it God wants me to do. Second, to love Mary, yes. But in any situation where we're making this decision, where we're problem solving, there are people involved. It might be one other person. It might be a group of people. It might be the whole world. And so, love God, love them. Right? We cannot make the right decision without first loving God and second, loving our neighbor. And then we listen. What does God want me to do? This dialogue, where what I'm thinking now may change if I'm open to the grace of God. Now maybe it will happen to us in the course of a dream, where an angel will speak to us. Oftentimes God speaks to me in my dreams. Or maybe it's through another person. Angels look very different, right? That person you're sitting right next to might be an angel of God. Possible. Certainly God can use that person to communicate to you. It might be through the scriptures. It might be through the church's teachings. It might be through the law itself. God wants so much to communicate with us. God wants so much to teach us the right thing to do so that we know how to obey the will of God. Because God knows what we sometimes forget, that this is the path to happiness. And it's the path to the completion of God's plan. What if Joseph had said no? What if Joseph had simply obeyed the law? What would have happened? We don't know. Thank God, Joseph said yes. Thank God he pondered. I think he must have learned that from Mary. He pondered what to do before deciding. And he was open to the will of God. Thank God that the angel said, "Do not be afraid," because this was a decision that was filled with fear. For us too, sometimes what God wants us to do is not easy, and we might be afraid. Perhaps that's the best measure of what is the will of God and who is the messenger of God. The one who says, "Don't be afraid, because we can do this." Joseph said yes, and Emmanuel came into the world. If we say yes, then God still is coming. Emmanuel will be with us.